Welcome to the Mind of Business Success podcast. I'm your host, Alicia Cramer. Today we have with us Shirley Dalton. She is a leadership expert. We are going to talk about how she will take a business owner and really pull out, cultivate the leader within to create an incredible, efficient team. Welcome to the show, Shirley.
Thanks so much, Alicia. It's a pleasure to be here.
I have to start with you and your business. Can you tell us about what it is that you do?
Yeah, sure. So I used to be the Chief Operating Officer for an Australian international franchise education, and a friend of mine asked me if I would document her procedures. And in the process of doing that, I loved it because I'm really curious. I'm a real sticky beak. And so after that, I found myself leaving my well-paid, six-figure job to go and start my own business, helping people do systems work and, finding out how people like to work and putting in systems. We're not talking about IT systems here, just general workflow systems. In the process of that, I found that once I'd finished the project and would walk away, the systems would fall over and I'd be scratching my head like, why is that? You've agreed and you've agreed. And then I realized that the owners didn't know how to lead and manage their people or hold them accountable or be able to have those tough conversations. So then that led to me coaching them individually. I went and did more leadership training and development for myself. I now put on public leadership programs, but they're very small. They're intimate, 10 to 12 people. And I do a lot of coaching around that. So that meant processes and people. And then I went and did more work on mindset development, and I call that possibilities. And that's the three areas that we work on to help business owners to create the business and the life that they love.
So when somebody comes to you, what are you doing with them to help them get out of their way and create a well-oiled machine?
Well, working with me, Alicia, is not for the faint-hearted because I have this ability, and some people love it and some people don't, but I can hold up the mirror and reflect back. So perhaps this is how you might be showing up. Perhaps this is how your people are seeing you. Perhaps this is what's happening for you. And once people are okay with that, and that's the first part of our blueprint for business freedom, is to know yourself. It doesn't mean that we're flawed. It just means understanding who we are and how we operate, and then how that impacts on other people. And then we can manage around that. And then the second part of it is to know the people, know who you're working with, so that you can interact with them in a better way. And I call that talking their language.
The piece that you first referenced, it's an important piece. When we have a certain perception of someone, it influences how we interact with them. From that employee-employer dynamic, that can be problematic. And I remember working with a client who had a consistent pattern of being seen as either the fun guy, the after work fun guy, or the hard ass ball buster, during the day. And it was creating a lot of conflict, because when he'd be the fun guy, then that would spill over into work. And then people were not taking work as seriously. And then they would get really confused when he would start being the tough guy. And that requires some honest introspection and some honest work, because that paradigm it's incongruent. It doesn't work. It creates too much conflict and a really disorganized team. So when you're working with someone, do you find that there's sometimes a little bit of internal resistance on their part to what they're seeing when you hold up the mirror, or do for the most part do they seem to embrace it and be willing to maybe smooth out the rough edges?
Well, that was one of the lessons that I learned early on in business about attracting the type of customers that we want to work with. Because when I would hold up the mirror, initially what I was attracting, and your expertise is in mindset, what I was attracting is what I call the naughty boys. And I would get these men and they would just want to argue with me. And all I was getting was a bloody forehead. And I said, no, woke up one day and I said, oh, this is no fun. I'm going to now work with business owners who I used to go to BNI and say, I'm looking for a man. And people would like, oh my God, who is this woman? And I'd say, he's a business owner. He's married with kids. He's over 40. And for some reason, they often had a boat or a motorbike or a toy. And they take responsibility and they're open to it. And so over the time, I've actually refined that. So a lot of my clients now, they come by referral and they're willing. And what you were saying before about the fun guy and then the hard person is often, Alicia, and you would know this, they're not aware of it. And so when you give them that feedback, often they're shocked and horrified. Really? Really? Am I having that effect? Mm-hmm. And so we have that ability to speak for the people that they're working with. And I've had so many women come up to me at events and functions, and they'll grab me by the hand and they'll say, thank you. And I'm saying, what are you saying thank you for? And because it spills over into their home life. And, I often tell the men, the women want to be involved. They want to know. And the men will say, oh, no, I don't want to burden them. And I say, she wants to know, she wants to be included. And so then they will start to open up and, they get closer. So, yeah, I just, like you, I love that side of working with people.
The other piece that you shared was understanding your team, understanding how to communicate effectively with the people on your team. So this really is a leadership trait. And now you're going into the business owner's responsibility, right? So they always say it's from the top down. And yet I know that a lot of business owners, even very successful ones, have a tendency to blame. Mm-hmm. Well, they're not doing their job good enough. They're this, they're that. And it creates a really dysfunctional dynamic. And it's extremely disempowering. So I know from my perspective, when I'm working with a client, I have to be the one to point out what seems very obvious from the outside perspective looking in, and do it in a loving way that can be more easily digested. But what are you experiencing with your clients? So is it like a whole new language in many cases that they're learning when I start to learn how to communicate more effectively with their team?
Yes, and some of it comes from the understanding that their team are not them. If their team were them, they would have gone out and started their own business. So they're not them. And they have these huge expectations. And as you say, they blame. He shouldn't be doing that. She shouldn't do this, etc. And I can remember one time I was working with a very, very intelligent, very successful business owner, and he had a trucking business and they would transport goods. And so this day I'm sitting in the passenger seat as we're bouncing down the highway, and he was really I was going to use an Aussie slang term. He was going off. He was having plenty to say about some of his team members. And I was thinking, how can I get this to him to understand it? And I came up with this little idea, which I call the light bulbs. And I don't know what the LED readings are now, but in the incandescent light bulbs, we would have a 20 watt, a 40 watt, 75 watt, 100 watt, etc. And I said to him, can you tell me a time where a 20 watt light globe would be really useful? And he's going, what are you talking about? And I said, well, when would you use a low light? And he said, oh, mood, music, time, romance, when you want to dull things down. I said, yep, great. What about 100 watts? When would you use that? And he said, well, when I want to see something, maybe in the kitchen, if I've got to have a lot of detail. I said, great. So here's the thing. You can't take a 20 watt and stick it in a 100 watt outlet and get 100 watts. And neither can you put 100 watts in a 20 watt and get the same output. And people are like that. Some are 20 watters, some are 40, some are 70, some are 100, and you're expecting a 20 watter to do the work of 100. And that doesn't mean that a 20 watter has no value. They absolutely do, but it's putting them in the right spot and then helping them to shine with that. And after that, then we had a language, which was, oh, he's a 20 watter, he's a 40 watter, he's a 100 watter. So, yeah, he was able to basically accept the people for who they were and give them the right work. And then that reduced his stress.
I love that, because that is a very effective mindset technique to help people to reframe things in their own mind. A lot of times we get stuck on something and we're so focused on the problem, we cannot even fathom the solution. If we can help pull somebody out of the problem and get them to shift their mindset just enough to be open to a different way of seeing things, the solutions are available to us. They're all inside. So we're just kind of freeing someone from the self-imposed jail that they've created for themselves with that particular problem.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And I love the saying, you don't know what you don't know. And once you're able to show people, they go, oh, yeah. And some will fight you and resist it, and others will be, oh, yes, I see it, and then they're able to change, and they have choice then. If you can have that awareness, you always have choice. And one of the things that we say in our leadership experience is, if you care about the person and you care about the relationship, use your skills. And we do a whole lot of skill training around iMessages, active listening, communication, conflict resolution, etc. And if you don't care about the relationship, take the gloves off and have a go, because you're going to ruin the relationship, but it's a choice.
Yeah, very true. Very true. So who are your ideal clients?
What I'm finding lately is that it's moved from the main business owner. What they do is they'll often come to the leadership experience, and then they're sending their team. So they're all getting that experience and that way of communicating the language, and so they're sending their department managers. And then the department managers then go and train the people. So my ideal clients these days, it's still business. I don't particularly work with big government corporations. I really like the entrepreneurs because they can make change happen. They don't have to have a committee of 100 people and nobody wants to make that decision. I really love working with business owners, because if it sounds good, feels right, looks good, they say yes, and away we go. So they're my ideal clients.
Let's talk a little bit about your own personal mindset journey. So you do not need to give us the entire autobiography, but I'm sure you've had some of your own mindset obstacles along the way, and you've probably had some pretty significant shifts which helped you to get to where you are. Is there anything that you feel inspired to share about your own journey?
Yeah, absolutely. people have talked about mental health, and particularly with COVID lately, a lot of people are suffering from that isolation. And there was a time, Alicia, when things were not looking rosy for us. And I just could not see a way out of things. And in fact, I was really contemplating walking off the planet. And my husband and I had always promised each other at least 50 years of happy marriage. And it's been 32 now. At this particular time, I said to him, I'm going. And he said, but you promised. And I said, well, I'm breaking my promise. And it was pretty awful time. He was worried that, what I was going to do. And I was planning all these different ways so that I wouldn't leave a mess and stuff for him. And anyway, this particular night, I said, no, that's it. I've made up my mind. And wow. Anyway, overnight, I realised that I did mean to keep my promise. And so I woke up in the morning and I said, no, I'm keeping my promise. We will have at least 50 years of happy marriage, and it's off the table. And from that point on, and I also got some coaching around that too, because I was saying that I don't have a vision. And the coach that I was working with at the time said, I don't believe you. And I was like, how can you not believe me? I'm telling you, I don't have a vision. And he said, of course you have a vision. He said, you're always talking about living by the ocean. You're always talking about traveling. And after that, I took myself off to the beach, which is my happy place. And I decided I'd like to travel around Australia, work and live around. I came back to my husband and I said, I'd like to get a motorhome and travel around Australia. And he goes, okay. And at the time, we didn't know how we were going to do that. Things were not in a good spot. And then that's what we did. We got the motorhome, we've been traveling, and things have just gone up and up and up. It's just, I think sometimes you have to accept that you're at the bottom of the pit and then, reach out, get some help, and then, it all just becomes part of that journey. And it's never that bad.
We all have our own personal rock bottom moments. I oftentimes share with my clients that the rock bottom moment that is the catalyst for change for someone is such a unique thing. You can have somebody, and I frequently use this example. I may have even used it in a different episode, but I think it really is a valuable point, and one that I want to plant as a seed in a couple of minds out there. So you can have someone who is going through their own internal hell. And when left unchecked, that will continue to build a lot of negative momentum. Now, let's look at the ways that certain people self-medicate. And I'm not even just referring to drugs and alcohol, although that's one common way, but certainly there are a lot of ways that people check out, a lot of forms of escapism. Even procrastination in many cases can be a symptom of a bigger issue. But if we look at somebody who, let's say, is using alcohol as a way to self-medicate, if that person's values, if their conditioning, if their rock bottom is, I had too much to drink because I was feeling sorry for myself and I woke up hungover and I couldn't go to work, that might be enough of a value conflict. That is their rock bottom. That's the moment where they say to themselves, I cannot do this anymore. Mm-hmm. And they go through the healing process and they can leverage that experience as a catalyst for incredible transformation. But now let's look at somebody who has a very different rock bottom set point. There are plenty of people that we see homeless, living on the street, begging for money, not even for food, but for alcohol. They've lost their home. They've lost their marriage, they've lost their children, they've essentially lost everything, and they still have not reached their true rock bottom, where they are going to say to themselves internally with conviction, enough is enough. This has to change. So when we're talking about transformation and we're talking about kind of being off our path and not being in our alignment and doing what it is that we truly feel inspired and called to do. So your vision is just that. Your vision is your inner being saying, this is what I want to do. This is what makes me feel alive. This is what gives me a sense of meaning and purpose and why I want to wake up in the morning and what makes me a better version of me so that I can be a valuable contribution to others. When we're not honoring that, when we're saying no to that, that's where we get ourselves all sideways and on that negative momentum trajectory. And at some point, hopefully sooner rather than later, hopefully, and I'm saying this as somebody, when I was younger, I struggled with deep depression, suicidal ideations it started at about just after 10. I think it started when I was about 11, really got bad when I was 12. And I struggled with that into my early 20s. So we're talking about somebody who's personally gone through that. And it's interesting how if we really are honest with ourselves and we look at that really, really horrible time in our life, and then we look at when, I'm just going to say it, sorry for not checking the explicit box here on the podcast, but when shit hits the fan, right, that's when we've hit our rock bottom. That's when we are really faced with two choices, because you could have followed through. You could have said, sorry, sweet, loving husband, I'm not living up to my end of the bargain here. But you had two choices. One of them is to allow that rock bottom to take you out, whatever that means. The other choice is to pull your head out of your you know what and make things happen, do your inner work, and start to get yourself congruent and in alignment with what it is that you're being called to do. And I know that there are people who are listening who maybe are not at that critical of a place within themselves, but a lot of people are struggling. Even people who have cash flowing in and who have businesses that are growing. I work with a lot of very successful business people, and it's not at all uncommon for them to come to me when they feel like they're having one of their rock bottom moments. That's usually when we will reach out for help. And it sounds a little bit weird, but it's so true. And I say this to them, congratulations, good job. You know, this is a good thing. You may not see it right now, but I'm promising you, this is your rock bottom moment. And if you are making the decision that you are going to use this as a catalyst to finally stop saying no to yourself and start saying yes to yourself, everything is going to open up for you. Because that's what those catalyzing moments are for us. But it doesn't have to be extreme. We can raise our lower limit so that the next time that you feel like you're bottoming out, it's not so drastic, but it's still an opportunity to up level.
Yeah, we always say life is always working for you, even though at times it's not to your preference.
Right. If consciously we were able to choose everything, I think we all could probably agree we'd be making some different choices. And yet, I think it's Napoleon Hill that is quoted as saying, you know, within every adversity is the seed of opportunity. So we have to always remember that even when things are not looking like they're going our way, there's something good. something really, really good is possible.
Yes. And I love there's a line in, I forget the exact name of the movie, but it's something like the most exotic marigold hotel. And this guy has got this dream to build this hotel, and things just go wrong. And he says, everything works out in the end. And if it's not working out, it's not the end. And
So true.
I love that, because when things don't go according to plan, I go, okay, it's not the end yet. But one of my, or not one of my mission in life, and I have it up here, I don't know if you can see where I'm pointing there, and it says, I will, by talking with people and using my listening, make a difference to others, and also live on the beach, having plenty of time and money to do what I want when I want. And that for me is the reason that I get up every day. I love hanging out with people. I love giving them that self-awareness, giving them the tools, giving them the leadership skills to be able to go and get what they want. And that is, my another part I say is that I want to inspire, educate, and support you to be, do, have, and feel what you want. And I put a proviso on there, as long as it's legal and moral.
So, Shirley, how can our listeners get in contact with you?
Mm-hmm. The easiest place would be to go to our website, which is HTTPS. It's not www. That one won't get you there, but it's shirleydalton.com. And if they would like to do a personality profile to understand who they are, and then be able to look at how they can interact with their workers, then if they go to shirleydalton.com/reach, REACH.
Excellent. So as we are rounding out this episode, I'd love for you to share with us any final parting thoughts.
I think what you were saying earlier, Alicia, about really getting in touch with what makes you happy. And, we talk about the two states of being, the primal and the powerful. And it's not that we won't get into the primal throughout the day, it's the length of time that we stay there. And so for people to get into that powerful state where they're rested, relaxed, and creative, and lose the stress, do something that makes you feel good. For me, it's going to the beach. For other people, it might be doing exercise or reading or yoga or anything like that. So that would be my final comment, I think, today, is to make sure that we get into the powerful state as much as we can.
Excellent takeaway. I want to thank you so much, Shirley, for being with us and being so vulnerable. That is powerful, because there's always people that you're going to touch at a much deeper level by really just sharing honestly. And that's why I love asking my guests about their own personal journey, because so much of the time we look at people who have achieved what appears to be more success than us, or, they maybe look like they've got it all together, or look like it's been super easy. But when you can hear, when you can get a little glimpse sort of behind the curtain, so to speak, it reminds us all to stay humble. Mm-hmm. We're all growing. We're all human. So we all have work to do. And anything worth doing, put your heart into it. You're going to encounter challenges. You're going to encounter obstacles, but you will, if you persevere, you'll break through it, and you'll be so much better because of it.
Yes. Yeah. And I that really comes down to commitment as well. Like I was committed to my husband, committed to our vows, committed to the promise that we'd made. And as you say, when you have that commitment, it will pull you through.
Absolutely. Thank you, Shirley. And thank you to all of our listeners. I so appreciate that you keep tuning in. We have such incredible conversations, amazing guest experts. If you haven't already subscribed, please make sure you do so. We have so many more great episodes coming your way.